Long before the world was divided into nations and cities, before the digital age that now floods us with information, there were stories whispered through the centuries. Among the most enduring of them are the tales of King Solomon, the biblical monarch said to be the wisest of men, the richest ruler of his time, a man with power granted by God himself. His name has become synonymous with wisdom, wealth, and the mysteries of the ancient world. And with Solomon's legendary reign comes a question that has haunted historians, archaeologists, and believers for thousands of years. Where is the tomb of King Solomon and what secrets might lie within it? Recently, a wave of viral claims and sensational videos have flooded the internet, declaring that Solomon's tomb has finally been unsealed after nearly 5,000 years, and that what was found inside would shock the world. These headlines are designed to stop you mid-scroll, to pull you in with the promise of hidden treasures, ancient inscriptions, and perhaps even forbidden secrets locked away since biblical times. But the real question is, did archaeologists really unseal Solomon's tomb, or is this yet another case of clickbait sensationalism blurring the line between fact and fantasy? To begin untangling this mystery, we have to first step back into the ancient world. According to biblical accounts, Solomon was the son of King David and Bathsheba, ruling Israel in the 10th century BCE. His reign is described as a golden age for Israel, marked by monumental construction projects, including the First Temple in Jerusalem, a structure that became central to Jewish worship and identity. Solomon's wisdom is legendary, illustrated by countless stories. The famous judgment between two women claiming to be the mother of the same child, his mastery over nature, and even his command over spiritual beings. And then, of course, there are the treasures. Gold beyond measure, riches brought by trading fleets, and legendary mines said to lie beneath the earth. All of these details create the aura of a king who seemed larger than life. But for all the stories told about Solomon's wisdom and riches, the Bible itself is vague about his death and burial. In the first book of Kings, it is written simply that Solomon rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. This phrase, the city of David, has launched centuries of speculation. The city of David is a small ridge south of the present-day Old City of Jerusalem, an area rich with archaeological remains. Could Solomon's final resting place truly lie somewhere beneath these ancient stones? Over the centuries, countless rulers, scholars, and adventurers have sought the tomb. Crusaders scoured the hills of Jerusalem, certain that they could uncover the graves of David and Solomon. Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions alike have preserved stories about the king's burial, often blending history with legend. And yet, no clear archaeological evidence has ever been presented to confirm the exact location of Solomon's tomb. Unlike the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, where pharaohs were entombed in elaborate chambers, the burial customs of Israel's kings remain far less understood, leaving scholars with more questions than answers. So when a modern claim appears declaring that the tomb has finally been unsealed, the first reaction from experts is one of skepticism. Discoveries of this magnitude are not whispered in obscure corners of the internet. They are published in peer-reviewed journals, studied by teams of archaeologists, and reported by major international media. Imagine if the tomb of King Solomon were truly found and opened. It would be one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in human history, on par with the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. The world would not hear of it through sensational thumbnails and mysterious narrators. It would dominate headlines across every major outlet. And yet, despite the absence of solid evidence, the allure of the claim persists. Videos with dramatic music and fiery titles pull millions of views, each promising to reveal shocking details. Some say the tomb was found beneath Jerusalem, sealed with stone for thousands of years. Others insist it was uncovered in a desert cave, guarded by ancient curses and supernatural forces. Still others hint at a cover-up, a conspiracy to suppress the true findings because they could rewrite history and challenge religious authority. These narratives are not backed by excavations, inscriptions, or scholarly consensus. They are instead part of a long tradition of myth-making, where the mystery of Solomon is used as a canvas upon which every generation paints its own imagination. But why does Solomon's tomb captivate us so deeply? Perhaps it is because Solomon represents more than just a king. He is a symbol of ultimate wisdom and divine favor, but also of human excess and downfall. The Bible itself portrays him as a man of contradictions, gifted with unmatched wisdom, yet ultimately led astray by foreign alliances and idol worship. His story is the story of human ambition, reaching for greatness but weighed down by flaws. To imagine his tomb sealed for millennia, untouched, is to imagine a time capsule of that greatness, a chance to touch the past in a way that bridges the divide between faith and history. And so the rumors continue. Some claim that inside the tomb lies a library of ancient scrolls, perhaps containing knowledge lost to time, forbidden texts, or even records of Solomon's dealings with supernatural beings. Others envision vast chambers filled with gold, jewels, and treasures brought from across the ancient world, relics that could rival the wealth of any pharaoh. A few whisper of darker possibilities, that the tomb holds objects too dangerous for mankind, relics of power that were meant to stay hidden. These ideas may sound fantastical, but they spread quickly, because they resonate with our desire for mystery, for discovery, and for the possibility that legends might still walk alongside us in the modern age. But the reality is this: no archaeological excavation has ever conclusively revealed the tomb of Solomon. The city of David has yielded remarkable finds, from ancient fortifications to inscriptions, but nothing that can be definitively linked to the burial of Israel's wisest king. The so-called Tomb of the Kings in Jerusalem, once thought by pilgrims to be the resting place of David and Solomon, is now recognized as the tomb of Queen Helena of Adiabene, a royal figure from the 1st century CE, nearly 1,000 years after Solomon's reign. For all the centuries of digging, the true location of Solomon's tomb remains a mystery, hidden beneath layers of history, legend, and the shifting sands of time. So when you see those bold titles declaring that Solomon's tomb has finally been opened, remember, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And in this case, that evidence is nowhere to be found. What we have instead are echoes of an ancient longing, the desire to connect with the past, and the power of a name that has endured for 3,000 years. The story of Solomon's tomb is not just about archaeology, it is about belief, imagination, and the human hunger for secrets buried in the earth. The fascination with Solomon's tomb is not just about archaeology or religion. It's about the power of stories to endure across cultures. Consider how many civilizations, each with its own traditions, claim a piece of Solomon's legacy. In Jewish tradition, he is the builder of the first temple and the writer of wisdom literature. In Christianity, he becomes a foreshadowing figure of Christ's kingship, a man whose wisdom points to something greater. In Islamic tradition, he is Sulayman, a prophet endowed with power over the jinn and the natural world. In Ethiopian legends, he is the ancestor of emperors, linked through the Queen of Sheba and the Solomonic dynasty. With so many threads woven into different traditions, Solomon's tomb becomes more than just a burial site. It becomes a symbolic treasure chest that each culture fills with its own meaning. This is why claims of its discovery carry such weight. To say that Solomon's tomb has been unsealed is not just to announce an archaeological find. It is to tug at the spiritual and historical identity of billions of people. If real, such a discovery could spark celebrations, disputes, and perhaps even conflicts, as different groups might claim ownership over the site and its contents. This is one reason scholars are especially cautious when dealing with claims tied to biblical figures. They know how quickly archaeology can be politicized or used as a weapon in ideological battles. Now, let's think about what unsealing Solomon's tomb would even mean. Imagine a chamber sealed in stone, untouched for millennia. If such a tomb existed, what might be inside? Archaeology teaches us that burial chambers of rulers often contain items meant to accompany the dead into the afterlife, or at least to signify their wealth and power. For Egyptian pharaohs, this meant golden masks, chariots, and even food offerings. For Mesopotamian rulers, there were ornate weapons, jewelry, and inscribed tablets. But Israelite royal tombs, from what we know, were simpler in comparison. Excavations of other sites from the period suggest stone sarcophagi, family burials, and occasional personal items, but nothing on the scale of Tutankhamun's treasures. This doesn't diminish Solomon's wealth or importance. Rather, it reflects the cultural practices of the time. However, simplicity does not make a discovery any less meaningful. Imagine finding an inscription that directly mentions Solomon or even his seal. That would be enough to transform our understanding of history, to bridge the gap between text and archaeology in a way that scholars have long dreamed of. A single shard of pottery inscribed with his name would be front-page news across the world. So why then do the videos claiming that Solomon's tomb has been opened never show such evidence? Instead, they present dramatic animations, stock footage of archaeological digs, and vague descriptions of treasures supposedly hidden for thousands of years. They thrive not on hard evidence but on the allure of mystery. This isn't to say that archaeology has no surprises. In fact, recent decades have yielded astonishing finds that confirm elements of biblical history. Inscriptions bearing the names of kings like Hezekiah and Omri have been unearthed. The Tel Dan stele, discovered in the 1990s, contains the phrase House of David, offering archaeological confirmation that David was a historical figure and not just a literary invention. Scrolls from the Dead Sea have revealed the richness of Jewish thought around the time of Jesus. Each of these discoveries shows that the past still has secrets waiting to be uncovered. But in every case, the process is careful, deliberate, and thoroughly documented. Teams of archaeologists painstakingly record every layer of soil, every artifact, every context. Nothing is rushed, nothing is hidden because credibility depends on transparency. And this is the great divide between sensational claims and real archaeology. Real archaeology may not always be flashy, but it is reliable. It builds a body of evidence that can be tested, verified, and debated. Sensational claims, on the other hand, rely on spectacle, on the thrill of the unknown, on the promise of a revelation just beyond our reach. They feed our imagination but leave our intellect hungry. The claim that Solomon's tomb has been unsealed falls squarely into this second category, captivating but without substance. Still, it's worth asking, why now? Why are these claims surfacing in our time, when archaeological methods are more advanced than ever? Part of the answer lies in the digital age itself. In the past, myths and rumors spread slowly, carried by word of mouth or obscure manuscripts. Today, a video with a dramatic title can reach millions overnight, regardless of whether its claims are true. Algorithms reward content that provokes emotion, not content that delivers accuracy. And so stories about Solomon's tomb, Atlantis, or lost alien artifacts thrive, not because they are credible but because they are clickable. But there's another reason, deeper than algorithms. In times of uncertainty, people look for anchors in the past. They want to believe that mysteries still exist, that there are secrets waiting to be revealed. The idea that Solomon's tomb might suddenly be discovered speaks to our longing for continuity, for the assurance that history has not given up all its treasures. It tells us that the past is not dead, that it still whispers through the cracks of time, waiting for us to listen. And so, the myth of the unsealed tomb persists. Some believe it with fervor, others scoff, but all are drawn into the conversation. Whether we accept or reject it, the very idea forces us to confront the relationship between history and legend. Did archaeologists really unseal Solomon's tomb? Almost certainly not. But the power of the question lies in the what if. What if one day, beneath the stones of Jerusalem, a chamber is uncovered that holds the remains of Israel's greatest king? What if within that chamber lies not only bones but scrolls that change our understanding of Scripture, or artifacts that reveal the connections between ancient cultures? What if the legends have been waiting all along to step into the light of history? These what-ifs fuel the imagination, and imagination is not without value. In fact, many real discoveries began with questions that sounded unlikely at first. Heinrich Schliemann dreamed of finding Troy, long dismissed as a myth, and his excavations uncovered a real city buried beneath the soil of Turkey. For centuries, people believed the Dead Sea Scrolls were merely rumors, until a shepherd stumbled upon jars in a cave in Qumran. Even King Tutankhamun's tomb was thought to be lost forever until Howard Carter persisted against the odds. These stories remind us that archaeology is not just science. It is also adventure, driven by curiosity and the refusal to accept that all mysteries have already been solved. So while the claim about Solomon's tomb may be false, the dream it represents is very real. It is the dream that somewhere, hidden beneath centuries of dust and stone, the past is still alive, waiting for us to uncover it. Perhaps Solomon's tomb has not been unsealed, but perhaps one day it will be. Until then, the legends will continue to circulate, reshaped by each generation, carried forward not by evidence but by the enduring human desire for mystery. Legends often live longer than facts, and when it comes to King Solomon, the legends seem almost impossible to separate from reality. In some traditions, his tomb is not merely a resting place but a vault of secrets, a chamber where knowledge and power are stored beyond the reach of ordinary men. This idea is not unique to Solomon. Across cultures we see rulers and sages transformed into guardians of hidden wisdom. Pharaohs buried with their books of the dead, emperors interred with armies of terracotta warriors, saints resting with relics said to perform miracles. Humanity has always imagined that the dead take more with them than just their bones. For Solomon, whose reputation as a sorcerer and wise man extended far beyond Israel, the idea of a tomb filled with arcane treasures has been irresistible. Medieval texts from the Islamic world describe how Solomon commanded not only humans but spirits, and that he possessed rings and seals inscribed with the secret names of God. If these items existed, where else would they rest but in his tomb? European occult traditions picked up on these ideas, claiming that grimoires of magical knowledge descended from Solomon's writings. The Key of Solomon, a famous medieval text on ritual magic, claimed to preserve his wisdom, though it was written more than 1,000 years after his death. Still, the association stuck. To imagine Solomon's tomb is to imagine not only a royal burial but a vault of supernatural lore. This blending of archaeology and mysticism complicates the story. When people hear that Solomon's tomb has been unsealed, their minds jump not to stone coffins and pottery shards but to golden treasures and hidden powers. The language of unsealing itself suggests something dramatic, almost apocalyptic, as though to open the tomb is to break a seal on forbidden knowledge. No wonder the idea spread so quickly online. It doesn't matter if the claim has no evidence. What matters is that it touches something deep within our imagination. But what about the city of David itself, the place where the Bible tells us Solomon was buried? This area has been one of the most heavily excavated archaeological sites in Jerusalem. Over the past century, archaeologists have uncovered fortifications, water systems, and evidence of habitation stretching back thousands of years. They have found tombs cut into the rock, some dating to the era traditionally associated with David and Solomon. These tombs are impressive, with chambers large enough for royal burials, though no names are attached to them. Scholars debate whether these could be the very tombs of the early kings of Judah. Some argue yes, that the biblical kings were buried here and that the stones we see today once held their remains. Others caution that the evidence is too circumstantial, that without inscriptions we cannot be certain. And so the mystery lingers, tantalizing but unresolved. The problem with identifying Solomon's tomb is not just the lack of inscriptions but the layers of history that cover Jerusalem. The city has been conquered, destroyed, rebuilt, and repopulated countless times. Temples have risen and fallen, palaces built and razed, churches and mosques constructed on top of older ruins. Each wave of history buries the previous one deeper, making it harder to distinguish the remains of Solomon's time. Archaeology here is like peeling an onion. Each layer reveals something older but also something more fragile and incomplete. And yet, even with all this effort, the exact location of Solomon's tomb remains elusive. This uncertainty creates fertile ground for speculation. Without hard evidence, storytellers are free to imagine what they like. And so, in one version of the legend, Solomon's tomb lies beneath the Temple Mount itself, sealed away under the foundations of the first temple. In another, it rests in a hidden cave in the Judean hills, accessible only through secret passages. In yet another, his body was never buried at all but ascended into the heavens, leaving only an empty tomb behind. These variations reflect the hopes and fears of different eras, a treasure to be discovered, a secret to be guarded, or a mystery to remain forever unsolved. But what would happen if archaeologists truly did unseal a tomb and claim it was Solomon's? The consequences would be staggering. Religious authorities would immediately become involved, since any discovery tied to Solomon touches on Judaism, Christianity, and Islam alike. Political tensions in Jerusalem, already fragile, would ignite as groups fought over control of the site. Scholars would rush to study the finds, while skeptics would question their authenticity. And the public, captivated by the mystery, would consume every detail, demanding to know what was hidden for thousands of years. It would be a discovery not just of archaeology but of global consequence. Yet here is the crucial point: such a discovery could not remain secret. If Solomon's tomb were really unsealed, there would be photographs, reports, excavations, and debates broadcast across the world. The absence of such evidence is itself proof that the claim is not credible. Real discoveries leave trails of data, while false ones leave only rumors. And in the case of Solomon's tomb, we have rumors aplenty but no data at all. Still, we should not dismiss the power of these rumors. They tell us something about ourselves, about what we long for in history. We want to believe that the past still has mysteries that can surprise us, that there are secrets so vast they could reshape our understanding of the world. The myth of Solomon's unsealed tomb offers exactly that, a window into a time when kings conversed with God, when wisdom could move nations, when treasures beyond imagination were gathered in a single place. It offers us wonder, and wonder is something our modern world still craves. So, did archaeologists really unseal Solomon's tomb? The evidence says no. But the story is not just about the evidence. It is about the enduring allure of a king whose name still commands reverence. Perhaps the tomb remains hidden, waiting for some future excavation to uncover it. Or perhaps it never existed in the way we imagine, a symbol rather than a site, a legend rather than a landmark. Either way, the tomb of Solomon continues to haunt our imagination, reminding us that some mysteries are powerful not because they are solved, but because they remain unsolved. And so we return to the present, where videos and articles continue to proclaim the shocking discovery of Solomon's tomb. They may not be true, but they are part of a much older tradition, the tradition of myth-making, the weaving of stories around the cracks in our knowledge. Myths do not need to be factual to be meaningful. They thrive in the spaces where history falls silent, carrying the voice of the past into the present. In that sense, Solomon's tomb has already been unsealed, not by archaeologists but by storytellers, who open it again and again in the imagination of every generation. There is something profoundly human in our obsession with lost tombs. Every culture has stories of hidden chambers, sealed doors, and forgotten crypts that hold secrets too powerful or too dangerous to be casually revealed. The very act of sealing a tomb suggests that it was not meant to be disturbed, and this in itself sparks our curiosity. Why hide it away? What is so important, so sacred, or so terrifying that it must be locked from the world for eternity? When stories claim that Solomon's tomb has been unsealed, they are not just talking about archaeology. They are hinting at the breaking of a taboo, the opening of something forbidden. Think of Howard Carter standing before the sealed door of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. When he peered through a small hole by candlelight, his companions asked if he could see anything. His answer was legendary: yes, wonderful things. That discovery shook the world, and to this day the treasures of Tutankhamun remain icons of ancient mystery and wealth. If Solomon's tomb were ever found and opened, the impact would be even greater. Tutankhamun was a minor pharaoh, barely remembered in Egyptian history, yet his tomb made headlines across the globe. Solomon, on the other hand, is a towering figure whose name resonates across 3 of the world's major religions. The discovery of his tomb would not just be a matter of historical interest, it would touch the very heart of global spirituality. But unlike Tutankhamun, Solomon's story is layered with far more myth and symbolism. To open his tomb is not only to disturb a burial site but to risk unleashing the weight of centuries of legend. Some traditions even suggest that Solomon's resting place was protected by divine forces, curses, or spirits that would not allow it to be violated. Whether these are merely superstitions or echoes of cultural memory, they add to the aura of danger surrounding the idea. People are not just fascinated by the treasures they might find but also by the risks they imagine, the idea that some secrets are too sacred to reveal. Of course, archaeologists do not deal in curses. They deal in soil layers, carbon dating, pottery typologies, and inscriptions. Yet even they acknowledge the power of myth. When excavations are carried out in Jerusalem, there is always awareness of the stories people carry with them. Archaeology here is never just science. It is also politics, religion, and imagination intertwined. The soil of Jerusalem is like no other, layered not only with stones and artifacts but with centuries of belief. Every find is scrutinized not only for what it reveals but for how it will be interpreted by those who hold the city sacred. This is why claims of finding Solomon's tomb are so explosive. Even without evidence, the idea alone can stir emotions. People long for confirmation of their faith, or for proof of ancient wisdom, or for a tangible link to their heritage. And when those hopes are inflamed by dramatic videos and headlines, the line between reality and fantasy becomes blurred. To some, the absence of evidence is itself a sign of conspiracy. They believe that archaeologists may have uncovered Solomon's tomb but are hiding the truth, fearing the consequences it might unleash. In this way, the myth becomes self-sustaining. The very lack of proof becomes proof of suppression. But if we set aside the conspiracies and return to the question itself, did archaeologists really unseal Solomon's tomb? We are forced to admit that the answer remains no. There is no excavation report, no inscription, no photograph, no artifact that ties directly to Solomon. There are tombs in the city of David, yes. There are burial chambers worthy of kings, yes. But none can be definitively linked to him. Archaeology thrives on evidence, and without it, the claim collapses. What remains are echoes of legend, dressed up in modern clothes, presented as news when they are in fact speculation. And yet, this speculation continues to draw us in, precisely because of what it represents. We live in an age where so much of the world has already been mapped, photographed, and catalogued. There are fewer blank spaces on our maps than ever before. But in our imagination, there are still vast unexplored territories. The Tomb of Solomon is one such territory, an unmapped place where the known and the unknown meet, where history and myth intertwine. To dream of it is to dream of discovery itself, the thrill of lifting a stone and finding beneath it the whisper of a forgotten age. Let us picture it for a moment. A team of archaeologists, working in silence, brushes away the dust of centuries. Their tools strike stone, not ordinary stone but a sealed doorway. The markings are faint, weathered by time, but they seem to hint at royal authority. With care, the seal is broken, the door slowly pried open. A rush of air escapes, untouched for millennia. Inside, the darkness yields to torchlight, revealing a chamber carved into the rock. At its center rests a sarcophagus, simple yet majestic, its surface cracked with age. Around it lie objects, vessels, fragments of ivory, perhaps even a golden seal ring. On the walls, faint inscriptions can be seen, barely legible, but enough to suggest a name: Shlomo Solomon. Such a scene belongs more to cinema than to reality, and yet it captures the heart of the myth. We want to believe it, to see it, to live it. We want to imagine the moment when the past is not just read in books but touched with our own hands. That is why videos about Solomon's unsealed tomb gain millions of views, even when they lack evidence. They give us a taste of this dream, a chance to step into the shoes of the discoverer, if only for a moment. The truth, of course, is more mundane. Archaeologists work slowly, often in extreme heat, documenting every stone and shard with meticulous detail. Discoveries are not sudden revelations but gradual accumulations of data. A name on a potsherd here, a wall foundation there, an inscription in another place. These are the pieces from which history is reconstructed. The process is painstaking and rarely dramatic, but it is also how we truly learn. And though it may not offer the thrill of a viral video, it offers something deeper. Real knowledge, real connections to the past. Yet perhaps the myth and the archaeology are not enemies but companions. The myth inspires us to search, to dig, to imagine. The archaeology grounds us, reminding us that truth is built not on fantasies but on evidence. Together, they form the full picture of human curiosity, the dream and the discipline, the vision and the verification. And maybe, just maybe, one day the myth will lead us to a discovery that even the skeptics cannot deny. Until then, the Tomb of Solomon remains unsealed only in our minds, a doorway to wonder that we open every time we tell the story anew. Stories about Solomon's tomb often carry whispers of hidden power. They say that somewhere deep underground lies not only the body of a king but also the remnants of a kingdom blessed, or burdened, with supernatural wisdom. For many, this is the true heart of the legend. It is not about bones or broken pottery, but about the possibility that Solomon took secrets to the grave, secrets that the world has never been ready to confront. Imagine for a moment what such a discovery would mean. Archaeologists unsealing the chamber would not only be handling ancient stones, they would be stepping into a place that has been the subject of countless myths. Would they find tablets inscribed with words of power, detailing the mysteries Solomon was said to control? Would there be artifacts tied to the building of the temple, a structure described as the dwelling place of God himself? Or perhaps, more controversially, would they find nothing at all, leaving us to question whether Solomon existed as history records, or whether his story has always been more legend than fact? This tension, between what might be there and what probably isn't, is what makes the story of Solomon's tomb so magnetic. Each new rumor, each viral claim of an unsealed chamber, reignites the debate. Some people dismiss it instantly, pointing to the absence of scholarly reports. Others lean in, convinced that the silence of experts is proof of a cover-up. The mystery grows not through evidence but through its very uncertainty. It is worth remembering that throughout history, legends of sealed tombs have always carried with them a sense of danger. When the tomb of Tutankhamun was opened, the so-called Pharaoh's curse was born. The sudden deaths of several people connected with the excavation became woven into a chilling tale, even though science later offered more rational explanations. Could something similar be said of Solomon's tomb? If archaeologists ever dared to unseal it, would myths of curses and divine wrath return to haunt them? Some traditions claim that Solomon commanded legions of spirits, both angelic and demonic, bound to serve him by a ring given by God. According to folklore, those same spirits might still guard his resting place, ensuring that no intruder would dare disturb it. Such stories may not hold weight in the halls of academia, but they do in the imagination of millions. And for many, the idea of disturbing Solomon's grave is not only a violation of history but an invitation to forces beyond our understanding. Of course, none of this has stopped explorers, treasure hunters, and researchers from searching. Over the centuries, countless expeditions have scoured Jerusalem and its surroundings, chasing hints of Solomon's wealth. Some have claimed to find tunnels beneath the Temple Mount, hidden passages that could lead to the royal tombs. Most of these stories fade without evidence, but they never quite die. They linger, ready to be revived with the next discovery, the next viral headline, the next sensational video. And perhaps that is the greatest treasure of all, not gold or jewels but the power of the story itself. Myths like Solomon's tomb endure because they touch something deep within us. They remind us that even in a world of satellites and science, there are still mysteries we cannot easily solve. The possibility, however faint, that archaeologists might truly unseal Solomon's tomb keeps the legend alive. Because if they ever did, the world would never be the same again. If Solomon's tomb were ever truly unsealed, the discovery would ripple far beyond archaeology. It would not be confined to dusty journals or quiet academic conferences. It would erupt across the globe, touching every community that traces its roots back to the traditions of the Bible. For Jews, it would be a direct link to one of their greatest kings. For Christians, it would be tangible evidence of a figure revered for his wisdom and his role in the sacred story. For Muslims, it would confirm the life of a prophet known as Sulayman, whose command over both men and spirits is woven into the Quran. The Tomb of Solomon would not just be a burial site, it would be a bridge between faiths, a physical reminder of shared heritage. But this also means it would be a discovery fraught with controversy. Imagine the struggle over who should control such a site. Would it belong to Israel, where the City of David excavations continue to reveal ancient structures? Would it be claimed as a universal heritage site under international supervision? Or would disputes erupt, each side insisting that their connection gives them priority? History tells us that holy sites can inspire both reverence and conflict, sometimes in equal measure. And Solomon's tomb, if found, would be among the holiest of all. Now imagine the scene if archaeologists did indeed step into the chamber. Cameras might capture the moment as light floods a space sealed for millennia. The air would be heavy with dust, the walls lined with carvings or faint inscriptions. At the center, a sarcophagus would rest, its surface weathered, its form unmistakably regal. And as the lid is slowly shifted aside, the question would hang in the air: what lies within? A skeleton, perhaps, draped in remnants of royal cloth? A collection of objects that speak of wealth and wisdom? Or something stranger still, something that defies the categories of history? Some would expect treasures, golden vessels, jeweled ornaments, relics tied to the construction of the temple. Others would anticipate texts, scrolls or tablets inscribed with knowledge that could alter our understanding of the ancient world. And some, driven by darker imaginations, would fear curses, plagues, or even entities bound by Solomon's legendary seal. The possibilities are endless, and each one adds to the allure of the myth. Skeptics will remind us that real archaeology is rarely so dramatic. Most tombs, even royal ones, are plundered long before modern discovery. Looters in antiquity often stripped graves bare, leaving behind little more than fragments. Yet this does not extinguish the legend, it fuels it. If Solomon's tomb remains hidden, perhaps it is because it was protected, sealed away more securely than any other. Perhaps it still waits, intact, somewhere beneath the stones of Jerusalem. And here is where the story becomes even more fascinating. What if the reports of an unsealed tomb are not fabrications, but fragments of a larger truth? What if archaeologists did stumble upon a chamber that bore royal markings? Perhaps they found something intriguing but inconclusive, enough to spark speculation but not enough to announce with certainty. In such a case, silence might not be a cover-up, but caution. Scholars would want absolute proof before declaring such a monumental discovery. In the absence of that proof, the world is left with rumors, half-truths, and tantalizing possibilities. This is why the story endures. The Tomb of Solomon has not been definitively found, yet the idea that it could be unsealed at any moment keeps people searching, watching, and imagining. It is a mystery that thrives in the space between evidence and belief, between history and legend. And maybe that is the real secret. The tomb itself, whether discovered or not, has already given us something priceless. A story powerful enough to transcend time. A story that keeps us asking questions, keeps us dreaming of discovery, keeps us wondering what might still be hidden beneath the earth. For in the end, the question remains: did archaeologists really unseal Solomon's tomb? Or are we still waiting for the day when the truth, at last, will step out from the shadows of legend into the light of history? Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the headlines. Tomb of King Solomon unsealed after 3 millennia. The world would stop. News networks would scramble to cover it. Religious leaders would weigh in, governments would issue statements, and millions would look toward Jerusalem, where a single chamber could rewrite human history. The discovery would not just be an archaeological milestone, it would be a cultural earthquake. Yet here is the paradox: we have not seen such headlines. We have seen rumors, videos, whispers, but not the weight of evidence. And in that silence, the myth has only grown stronger. It is almost as if the absence of proof makes the story more powerful, more tantalizing, because it allows us to fill the gap with imagination. Picture it again, the unsealing of the tomb. A team of archaeologists and historians carefully documents every inch. The chamber is measured, scanned, photographed. And then comes the sarcophagus, waiting patiently in the dark. As the lid shifts, centuries of dust rise into the air. Inside, a figure lies, skeletal but still carrying an aura of majesty. Beside him, fragments of ivory, vessels of gold, perhaps even a seal ring with strange markings. The walls of the tomb bear inscriptions, some too eroded to read, others whispering words that send shivers down the spine. A name appears, faded but unmistakable: Solomon, son of David. Such a discovery would confirm what many have long believed, but it would also ignite questions. Could these remains truly belong to the biblical king, or are they those of another royal, buried in the same era? Could the artifacts reveal insights into the First Temple, into the culture and technology of Solomon's time? Or would they raise even deeper mysteries, knowledge that challenges the stories we have passed down for generations? And then there is the other possibility. Perhaps archaeologists would open the tomb only to find emptiness. Perhaps it was looted centuries ago, or perhaps Solomon was never buried in a single place. Perhaps the tomb was always meant to be a legend, not a destination, a story to inspire rather than a site to uncover. The truth is, we do not yet know. The tomb of Solomon remains one of the greatest mysteries of the ancient world, a riddle caught between faith and science, between myth and history. Did archaeologists really unseal it? No credible evidence suggests they have. But could they one day? Absolutely. And that possibility is what keeps the story alive. Because in the end, Solomon's tomb is more than stone and dust. It is a mirror for our imagination, reflecting our longing for discovery, our hunger for meaning, our fascination with the past. Whether it lies waiting in the hills of Jerusalem or only in the legends we tell, it continues to captivate us, and perhaps that is its greatest treasure. So the next time you hear a headline claiming that the tomb has been unsealed, remember this: the truth is not in the clickbait or the whispers. The truth is in the enduring mystery. A mystery that calls to us across the centuries, urging us to keep searching. And perhaps someday that search will lead us to a door. A sealed door. Waiting.